Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And hi for those who are watching this video, especially to my lecturer, Sir Ferry Nasrul. I'm a student from UITM Segamat. I have been given a task about current issues and ethics in finance for my subject FIN657. So I have decided to choose money laundering as the title. The current issues that I will cover are about money laundering via underground currency exchange network. But before I start, let me introduce myself first. My name is Fatin Fatiha binti Hize, and my student ID number is 2019 326 459, and I'm from group JBA 2425A. Okay, before we go deep into this issue, let me explain a little bit about what is money laundering. Money laundering refers to engaging directly or indirectly in a transaction involving the proceeds of illegal activities. It is also involved in receiving, processing, concealing, transferring, disposing of or using proceeds from illegal activities. Money laundering is known as the concealment, movement, or investment of incriminated funds. So it aims to hide the asset of one party and change the asset of the accused until they become valid. So money laundering works for organized crime because of the mergings of funds that can be illegally into the economy that can give negative effect, and it can contribute to illegal market organizations. They have 3 steps in money laundering. Okay, which is first step is placement. This is the first step where illegal money as a result of robbery or criminal activities such as corruption enters the financial system. And then this step has 2 main important purposes, which is first, the criminal does not need to hold and keep a lot of money personally or on hand. And then second, put the illicit money into a legitimate financial system. And then next, second step is layering, also known as structuring. The most complex stage and usually involve the movement of international money. The main purpose was to separate the illicit money from its source. So how to do a sophisticated transaction for layering? So this is to get rid of the money trail and decide the connections of the money to the original criminal or recipient. So the cleaner will use multiple bank and accounts and appoint a professional as intermediaries to manage foundations and corporations. He will pay the salaries of these managers. And then lastly, for the third step, which is the last step, is integrations. So just now we have put the illicit money in a legitimate financial system by disguising him. We call him is placement. And then the money, we split it up and put it away again. So we create a lot of companies and break down the money in that company. That is what we call layering. And then now we want to take back the money to use. So this is the final stage. Once the money has entered the legal financial system and it looks legitimate, it is considered legitimate money. So there are many ways to get and reuse the money, but the main point is you must get the money in a way that does not attract the authorities and seems legitimate from legitimate source. I'm sure you already know a little bit about money laundering, right? So let's go deeper into this issue. Okay, money laundering is difficult to determine since it is performed between criminals who will not judge each other. but it also does not promote the unification of illicit funds into the economy. So this action may conceal the source of the money from where it came from. Money laundering will be negotiated with if any of the parties involved in such problems come forward to comply by describing the details of money laundering. Since then, a number of financial institutions are already held responsible for money laundering through national legislation and international regulatory framework. Let me give the explanation. For instance, that in 1997, Switzerland had already adopted the law on money laundering, which was used as an example. And the high risk money laundering business, which is a real estate, gold, cryptocurrencies, and in particular, that can carry vast amount of incriminated money without attracting the citizens. So the money would be filtered by various means, such as cryptocurrency, by using a software program called a mixer that can auto transactions in the darknet. So making it by that it making difficult to track the origin of the fund. Okay, now let us know how the strategy they use by money launderers. So the technique used by the money launderer depends on the sum that needs to be converted, whether big or small. So if a small amount of payment between criminals will solve the problem of currency fluctuation by making fake invoice. And if a large amount is to be split by making different types of transaction to allow access to large sums of money, money launderers need to be in touch in central banks. Unfortunately, they still have a logistical challenge. The problem is that the transport handles the vast amount of money. And then, let's comment on where the source make this money launderer easier. The source is they need a criminal banker who want a commission. So as a result, the banker would share a place for them to exchange in a secure institution, guided by private security officer, and no CCTV footage that can be used as evidence. And in addition, they will need a test tool to ensure that the money is authentic. So every job has its own risk, so as well as money laundering. So now let us know what is the risk of money laundering. They also have the risk of doing such a job. Okay, so the first risk is the probability of counterfeit the exchange of currency. So that's why they need tool to check the authenticity of the money. And then the second is the risk of undercover agents who pretend to exchange the money, and it can be checked by the workers. So this risk can be minimized if they have known each other for a long time. And then third, many people need to be prevented from witnessing their company. So that's why such a limited number of people also need hear about them. Okay, now, this is how they solve it. First, a qualitative interview was conducted to identify the money laundering method, which is involved 42 accused of the issue money laundering, 18 compliance officers, And quantitative survey was also conducted to 200 expert officers. And then, as a result of qualitative interview from money launderers and compliance officers, there is an underground currency um, exchange that the authorities are not aware of this matter. From this matter, the author decided to detail this issue, whether the compliance officer know or not about this matter. So pre-study was conducted, which is interview 42 money launderers and 18 expert money launderers. So this interview is conducted by face-to-face, by phone, or by video chat, because by this way it's more comfortable, but there are also those who cannot attend the meet because they are too busy. So usually they do not want to be interviewed when recorded because they feel uncomfortable. So the interview is recorded by audio only. So to know more about this issue, 5 issues have been raised, which is first, the applicable process, and second, the individuals involved in this process, and third, people's objective during the process, and number 4 is factors that influence this process and possible conflicts, and lastly, number 5 is the causes and probable solutions. But this approach has limitations. For example, expert money launderers is biased or hide something. Finally, the interviews needs to get the same picture with another. So then transfer the transfer the transcript to the qualitative data analysis software program that we call MAXQDA. And then next we highlight and summarize, and next we delete the same or unnecessary data, and lastly we translate all the different languages so that it's easy to understand. After qualitative completions, quantitative is conducted to know if the compliance officer knows about the method used of money launderers. And then, second, it can also be overcome by using anti-money laundering. So let me tell you something about anti-money laundering. So until 1986, money laundering is not considered a criminal crime in the world. And at that time, anti-money laundering was founded to tackle the crisis of international drug trafficking. Other than drugs, money laundering is also linked to organized crime, white-collar crime, and corruption. So, however, money laundering is now a huge threat to public and national security. And normally, anti-money laundering focus on more to banking sectors, which is money launderers frequently move their activities to another sectors that is less risky and less of AML's concern. So AML will be extended and implemented once the problem of money laundering has been studied and truly understood. Okay, third, money laundering will be stopped if there is a collaboration with an foreign corporations. And then lawmakers have also taken steps to curb money laundering by implementing international agreements, including the Financial Action Task Force (FATF) and the European Union Anti-Money Laundering Directive. So for FATF legislation covering the enforcement of national legislation, of the investigation of money laundering and the war against terrorism. However, the anti-money laundering directive of the European Union are applied in member states of the European Union. Okay, so I can say that money laundering is detrimental to financial sector institutions that are crucial to the economic development. So the spread of crime and corruption, which slow it down economic growth and reduce competitiveness in the real economy. So money laundering is a crisis not only in large financial market and see centers around the world, but also in emerging markets. I have learned a lot of new things from this topic that I have researched. Any of the findings that I have found are that currency exchange is a very ideal for money laundering activities. Other than that, the parties concerned have not been capable of detecting money laundering operations from the start. And the authorities must always be careful of these criminals by always being aware of the latest techniques that may develop by money launderer. So from this study, I also know how this type of activities occur and what is the strategy used, what are their sources, what is the risk of this in these activities, and then how they do for combat money laundering, and lastly I know how this matter is resolved. And now let's talk about business ideal for money laundering activities. So what I found from money laundering activities in business that are made for money laundering are usually business that have high volume transactions or high level of cash. So among them are bank, account, international money handlers, car dealers, hotel, bar, and nightclub. So anyone that participating in money laundering activities will be prosecuted. So for offences referred to in section 4.1 of the Amlat file, a person convicted of offences may be detained for no more than 15 years and may be fined not less than 5 times the amount or value of the possession of unlawful activities or instrument at the time of the offense, or 5 million, whichever is greater. Okay, now we talk about anti-money laundering. So anti-money laundering is a term used specifically in the financial and legal sectors to represent legal controls that enable financial institutions and other control entities to avoid, identify, and monitor money laundering activities. So as a result of the establishment of the Financial Action Task Force (FATF) and the promulgation of an international framework for anti-money laundering principles, the anti-money laundering guidelines have gained global prominence. So these requirements started to become more significant in 2000 and 2001. So after the FATF began a process to publicly recognize countries that have a deficit in their anti-money laundering and international cooperation law, a process known as names and shame. So an effective AML is a program requires authority to criminalize money laundering, to give local regulators and police the powers and resources to investigate, to be able to exchange informations with another countries as appropriate, to enable financial institutions to recognize their clients, and then develop risk-based control, and then maintain records and report suspicious activities. So strict background checks are required to tackle as many money launderers escape by investing through complicated ownership and company structures. Bank can do that, but proper supervision is needed. But it needs to be reduced on the government side. So in recent years, the increase of anti-money laundering mechanism has been due to the use of a big data and artificial intelligence. Traditional anti-money laundering programs are lagging behind in the face of emerging threats, and new technology are helping AML enforcement officers to cope with inadequate implementation, increased regulations, administrative difficulty, and false positive. I have my own recommendation to combat the money laundering, which is first, ask a lot of questions. There are a variety of questions you need to ask when presented with a business plan to ensure that it's a legal relationship, or whether it gives a warning to prospective money laundering. So first, the first question is inquire about the amount of money involved and the investor involved. And the ambiguous answer is a red flag. So second question that you need to ask is why, and begin doing some investigate work if someone has unexpectedly approached you and wants to invest in your company. And then the third question is talk for properties. Talk for properties that might have appear with you in the financials they share. Fourth question is inquire about any payment in cash, or why they would like to send you cash. You may want to pass on this offer if the answer do not seem to make sense or are too good to be true. And then second way to combat the money laundering, which is learn about money laundering schemes. So criminals are constantly developing new tactics. So the more you know and share with your team, the more likely you are to be able to spot any attempt at money laundering by your small business. And then the third way to combat money laundering is do due diligence. So it refers to investigate extensively everyone involved in these transactions. For example, if a total stranger decided he wants to give you a large amount of money, you didn't just hit that part. So you didn't just hit the jackpot. So it's probably a money laundering scheme. So you may run online background checks to see if any of these individuals have been already arrested or charged with a crime. And then before you consent to get involved, be sure to know identity of all those involved in these transactions and relationship. If you are looking for a possible partner or customer, see how their business is registered. So you can do this electronic by checking the Trade Standard Authority or the local government office that hold this information on record. So this is especially relevant when foreign countries are involved. They will also be able to share whether or not the company has received any complaint. So for the fourth way to combat money laundering, which is establish a formal anti-money laundering policy. So even a small company should have a structured policy on its money laundering. Structured policy on its anti-money laundering strategy. So the policy should provide guidelines for such acts to be taken or prevented. So for instance, you may also want to include accounting and cash handling procedure in the policy. So having this as a structure will lead the decision-making process to agreement and collaboration with others. So it can also help to form and prepare other team members to consider what a money laundering scheme could look like. So it also underlines the serious nature of this scheme. And then each organization must report suspicious activity to the authorities. And lastly, number 5 is maintain your privacy. So your small firm is all about you. So stay that way by not sharing any financial data and information with someone else you don't know well enough. And then particularly anyone who asks you to do so by email or phone. And then also make sure keep all device secure, including updating password on a regular basis and not sharing them with someone else. So you also want to use new forms of protection technologies. Make sure that the staff also know how to keep this information private. So I hope that the problem of money laundering will be minimized and will hopefully vanish one day, so that the world will be more harmonious without illegal activity. The authorities should also always be alert and always be prepared for new and unforeseen steps to tackle money laundering. So that's all from me. Thank you for watching.